Hi everyone, and thank you for such a warm welcome. Can I make a plea to you? If there are large gaps for where you're sitting and you notice there's no one to the left of you or the right of you, can you move closer? Let's try and get as much as we can in this room, a bit of a warm campsite feeling. Let's move a little bit closer, if you're comfortable to do that, of course. All right, everyone settled? Nice. Okay. Today, I want to focus on building one of our superpowers. This one is a favorite one of mine. How many agile coaches do we have in the room here? Should we show of hands? How many Scrum masters? How many product owners? Quite a few. I'm not going to tell you what the superpower is yet, but we're going to get started working on it. Right. What I'd like you to do is look to the person to your left. Have you met or do you know this person? You've been here for over half a day, no expectation. But just think about it to yourself. Have you met or do you know this person? Now look to the person on your right. Have you met or do you know this person? Do it without giggling. Okay. All right. Now just feel into these questions for me, okay? How does it feel to sit next to someone you know versus someone you don't know? Oh, I'm getting the waving thumbs here. Okay. Think about this then. In a conference like this, let's say if we had to pay for our own coffee, who would you feel comfortable asking to borrow money for a cup of coffee if you wanted it and you'd left your wallet? Who would you feel comfortable with asking them to watch your bag whilst you went to the bathroom? Person you know? Person you don't know? Okay. So let's start using our superpowers right away. Look to the person that you know least, okay? Look to that person and you have a minute. I'm going to get a bit playful here. You have a minute to exchange your name and an interesting fact they don't know about you. So, go have fun. Take a minute to do it. I will time you. When I raise my hands and I say, attention to the front, guys, we're going to carry on with the rest of the presentation, then we get on with the rest. Go have fun. Okay, guys. Everyone, attention back to the front. Okay. Now, especially for our online colleagues that weren't able to sit and listen, I'd love for them to also think about the questions that I'm just about to ask for the last in-person event that they attended, okay? But I'd like you guys to focus on those questions too. So feel into this for me. How did it feel talking to someone that you don't know just now and breaking the ice and knowing a little bit more about them? Oh, I got a few smiles and I got thumbs up. Thumbs up. Thumbs up in the building online, guys. Okay. Okay. How does it feel getting to know others in a safe space? You don't have to answer, just think about it. How did you make the other person feel? Do you know? Did you use the time intentionally? Did you make them feel comfortable? Did you make them feel understood? The person you just spoke to had the power to make you feel good or bad. That's their superpower. And guess what? That's your superpower too. So if you haven't guessed yet, we're talking about the power of empathy, but we're connecting it with estimation. Now, Inga gave me a great introduction before we came on. It's lovely to meet you. I'm Nisha. I'm a principal consultant, Scrum Master, and Agile coach. I work for a digital consultancy and digital. I get out of bed to work with teams. I love working with teams. I love working with people. I love traveling. Friends and family are everything to me. And yes, I'm a co-host of a podcast, The Delivery Space, but Inga gave me a plug, so we shall not spend any more time talking about that. Let's make the connections. Why do we estimate? In complex environments that we work in, we need to get our heads around the work that needs to be done. But I've never met a CEO, CTO, CIO that's not interested in when the work is going to be done. And I'm always looking to know when it will be done. But for us, in our complex environments, we need to get a handle around how much work there is and the work itself to be done to be able to eventually get ourselves to that position where we can answer some of those questions. What is empathy? The empathy part is the ability to understand and share feelings of others. You can hear it said many times, it is about standing in the shoes of others, but it goes deeper than that, I feel. And this empathy and estimation connection also goes deeper. So in my career so far, it's taken a couple of flavors. The first one can be summarized in conversations with stakeholders. First conversation goes like this. Stakeholder coming to the team and saying, guys, you've given me estimates, and you told me that you'd be able to deliver something in 3 sprints. Every sprint review I've come, there's nothing really for me to look at. And at the end of sprint 3, I haven't got anything. I'm disappointed. Team walks away demotivated. Second type of conversation. Stakeholder says to the team, Thanks, guys. I understand the complexity we're trying to resolve here. How do we get ourselves more to that point of certainty, more to that point of where we know what our next steps are within this complex problem we're trying to solve? The team turns around and says to the stakeholder, we thought about this. These are the experiments that we're going to put in place. The team are not saying, yeah, we're confident by the end of sprint 3, you're going to get everything that we've promised you. No. The team is saying, these are our next steps, and the stakeholder gets it. That's the connection between empathy and estimation, in my view and in my experience. But what we need to do now is look at how we can explore empathy as your superpower, as we've just discovered, and how it can affect how you work with your teams and how it can impact your team's performance. Don't take this as something wishy-washy, because it can make the difference, and I've seen it, between your team performance being amped up and everyone geared and working and rallying around each other to achieve the best outcomes, versus disappointing conversations and stakeholders who are not really brought along on the journey. When you think you've got empathy and you understand it, life tests you. So, I'll give you an example from my own life. Let's talk about Jimbo. My sister and I live with my sister. We love traveling long-haul holidays. Came to the COVID years, couldn't travel anywhere, saved money. We thought, right, what can we do? Let's do the house up. I don't know about new built houses here in Lithuania, but over there in the UK, new built houses are like, what can I say? Like a temple to magnolia, cream paint everywhere. And we wanted to add our own touch to the house. So we thought, okay, so we'll do it up. We took recommendations from the neighborhood around good tradesmen to work with. We found Jimbo, went to look at some samples of his work. Samples of his work were really good. Thought, right, we'll book Jimbo in, and you can see he got working on the front yard. That's our front yard, right? I'm really proud of it. So we got admiring glances from dog walkers in our neighborhood. Everyone's walking by. I'm like, inside, not to my sister, because she won't take any of my pride. Can't do that with her. But I was thinking to myself, Nish, this is a good choice. This is a really good choice. Nice one. Can't wait to see what Jimbo does on the inside of the house. Want to know what happened next? Front of the house, gorgeous. Nisha's sitting there really proud inside. Can't wait to see what happens around the inside of the house. You know what it's like. Typical Nisha, thinking, I can get my soft furnishings in, what colors would go here, what would match. Then I started noticing something. Jimbo started growing a bit distant, and I couldn't understand why. Started noticing splatters on the carpet of paint. We were still on a budget, right? Carpet that we couldn't afford to replace. You know, where the wall meets the ceiling? There was paint splatters, wasn't neatly finished. Jimbo is the type of person that would bring us, me and my sister Nita, if we're working, if we are on teleconferences all day or Zoom all day, he'd bring us a cup of tea because he'll know that we haven't gotten up all day. Great guy. So empathetic, lovely guy. But all of a sudden, he'd leave without even telling us. I was conflicted. Don't be fooled by the smile. That scowly person appears from time to time. This is what I was starting to think inside myself. Half of me was thinking, am I getting ripped off? I was paying for a service. I was paying for a quality service. But I wasn't seeing the outcomes that I wanted. Can you relate? How many of you had similar sort of experiences? right? So that's, why is Jimbo so distant all of a sudden? I don't get it. The other side of me started thinking, maybe there's something else going on here. And then I started to relate it to my own situation. My dad is of retirement age, and he was a tradesman too. What if it was my dad? How would I want someone to treat him? But the game changer came for me when I thought about Jimbo, just Jimbo. And I started thinking, what must Jimbo be feeling to act this way? This can't be a comfortable experience for him. That was my game changer. And then, what was really good was me and my sister decided to sit down with Jimbo. So we had a conversation with him. We didn't itemize everything we saw around the house, that it wasn't working, wasn't looking so well. We didn't do any of that. We just said, Jimbo, what's up? Like, we've noticed there's a change in how you're showing up. What is it? What can we do to help you? He was reluctant, very proud man, was very reluctant to share. And when he did share, we found out in the same conversation that his diabetes has worsened over time and has started impacting his eyesight. But because he's proud, because he didn't want to let us down, he just kept going, kept going, kept going. And once we found that out, we said, well, what can we do to support you? What can we do to make you feel like you're in a better place? It took him a while, but his son was also a tradesman who was working part-time on a job. And we said, we want to make that time for you, Jimbo, to go and get your eyes checked out so we can get you back to that state where you were, happier to carry on. And it worked. His son came, took over, Jimbo got the time out, but it took that difficult conversation to make it happen. The outcome, he got a nice, sexy pair of glasses. That's not Jimbo, by the way. Don't start getting ideas. But he was back to his peak health that he could be at that time to continue with his work and continue delivering stuff to quality. What did we learn? What did me and my sister, take away from that conversation? Tough emotions are signposts. They're not roadblocks to say that you must just stop there and not figure out how to proceed next. And we see that in our life loads of times, especially in our team situations. Seeing things through Jimbo's eyes, walking in his shoes, changed the situation for us. Not comparing our situation to him, but thinking about things from his perspective. And braving that conversation brought us the clarity. I also bought Jimbo a pair of sexy glasses. So empathy goes deeper. Empathy isn't asking, what would I be feeling in that situation? It's asking, what would I have to be experiencing to behave that way? So ask yourself that question when you're figuring out how to deal with a difficult team situation or a dynamic in your daily life. That's what really helped me. What happens when empathy is not used in our environment? When your superpower, which is empathy, is not used, what happens? Hands up who's heard of this HS2 project in the UK? One person. Yeah, but I recognize that smile. Guys, if I tell you about this project, the government, let's just put it this way, it's been going on for years. It's already cost the UK millions and millions of pounds. It's a high-speed railway link that connects different cities together in the UK. It cuts through nature ecosystems. It disrupts residential environments. It results in strikes. Now, you can imagine what the planning committee was like discussing how to kick off HS2. Yeah, we'll put all these links up in the UK. They'll love it. And then you see this. What happens when empathy is used as a superpower in your life? If you like Motown, you'll know the lyric, "Ain't no mountain high enough." Who recognizes that? For the longest time, that used to be like the brand campaign song for a big distribution, logistics, air express company. It's my first job, DHL. I learnt my stripes. I was a project and program manager for them, early 2000s. But inevitably, as what happens in big corporations, you get consolidation. If you've got a global presence, you know at some point there's going to be some sort of consolidation. And that means layoffs. And I was waiting, and it happened, for that meeting with my manager. But the way my manager handled it was different. I went in, I had a pit of fear in my stomach, not the same type that I had when I came up here on stage, that different type of fear when you know you're going to receive bad news. But what my manager did was he took us all, we were all in our 20s in that program and project management group. We all learned our stripes in that organization. We all learned the business and developed relationships with everyone in the business. But he put together, him and the entire committee, looking at the numbers, because it becomes a game of numbers in this case, put together a package for us, not only for helping us see, like on our CVs, interviews, etc., but a thorough package of, in the market, what were the certifications, the training that project and program managers had, what would put us in the best space. I left the office in the same way as that girl that you see there, smiling because I knew I was on the route to success, because they trained me up before I left so I could progress at the next level in my career. And that, if you imagine, ooh, what happened there? If you imagine that committee compared to HS2 sitting around the table discussing that reduction in numbers, they made the conscious decision, filled with empathy, putting themselves in our position so that one day we would remember that and also remember what a positive impact that had in our lives, because it propelled us, all of us actually, we're all still in touch, propelled us to the next stage in our career. Right, we're going to meet a team now. They're called the Baltic Breakthroughs. This team are usually a powerhouse in Vilnius, but, and we don't know why, they're feeling off their game. Do you want to meet them? We're going to meet them at an event, a sprint planning event, and we're going to be a fly on the wall. Are you ready? Are you ready? Whoa! Okay. I want us to just take a moment to see what's going on around the room. Jonas is pretty relaxed there. They're doing their sprint planning. They're about to start estimating. Jonas is saying, I'm happy with my estimate. Can we move on? Thomas is saying, well, he's not saying, he's thinking. They're actually all thinking. I don't understand it, he's saying. He's thinking. Lena, what's going to happen if we give this story a high estimate? Aras. Oh, I think we should give it a higher estimate because we don't have all the answers. Darius. Have we done one that's similar before? I don't know. Greta. It's too big to estimate. What we're going to do is we're going to play a little game now. Let's try and get you a bit active. It's like afternoon time, so we need to re-energize. I want you to stand up and stay standing up if you've had any of these experiences. So, what if Lena's, does Lena's sentiment resonate with everyone? Where you're worried about the timeline that has been committed to if you give a story a high estimate. Have you ever had that experience? Stand up and stay standing. Wow. Yeah, safe space. Be honest. It's fine. Anyone had the same experience as Greta, that what you're trying to accomplish is too ambitious? Right. Anyone had the same experience as Thomas? You really need clarification. Blimey, lots of people getting up. You didn't even wait for me to finish there. You need clarification on something before you actually estimate it. Okay? Look around. This is evidence of the array of emotions that goes on in a room when you're thinking about planning. And often, a lot of this is not said. Sit back down, guys. Thank you for taking part. Now, when you came in, you got given a piece of paper. And I hope you've all got pens as well. On that piece of paper, guys, I would love you to write. Think about a sprint planning meeting, or if you don't do Scrum, team meeting, where you've held back on a concern, a question, a suggestion, an idea. Lock on that thought for me and just write that. That is for you, this piece of paper. That is for you. You just write that on this piece of paper for me. Take 30 seconds. Just lock onto that thought. Capture it. Capture the idea. Capture the suggestion. Remember where you held back. And guys online, you can do this too. Grab a piece of paper. This is just for you. Okay, you have 30 more seconds. I can see people talking. Okay. Now, guys, fold that paper up for me. Just fold that paper up. And just hold it up. I don't want to see it. This is for you. Hold it up. Just fold it up. Hold it up. No one needs to see it, just you. Now, if you look around, each one of these is a symbol of an idea, a suggestion, a feeling. If they were expressed, think about what progress could have been made as a result of them. Think about the clarification. You can put your hands down now. Think about the innovation that could have come as a result of that. I wish you could see what I just saw right now. You guys looked amazing. That was quite powerful. So that's the thing, guys. How do you get to that space where we can give a voice to those silent thoughts? And I'll share my experiences with you. It starts with every single team member. As one thing that I've learned in my experience, and there's a common misconception that you just put teams together. You get a Scrum Master, get an Agile coach if you're lucky, teams come together and the magic will just happen. Well, you know what? It doesn't. You need to have a genuine interest, just genuine level of interest between each other. You have to be genuinely interested in each other. You have to understand each other to be able to relate, to be able to collaborate, to be able to connect. That's where the magic is. I don't know if any of you have heard of Cassie Robinson's user manual for me. We use this in our teams and digital because we understand this. And some of the questions that we use are these. So remember Jonas? Jonas was sitting back in our scenario. He's quite happy with his estimate. He wanted to move on. This is Jonas's way of explaining and wanting to be part of a team and explaining a bit about himself. So what are some of the things that make Jonas's day better? Give me unlimited coffee and Wi-Fi. Right? Stronger than his love for programming. What's one thing you'd like to know about others to like to know about your work style? Jonas likes quiet. He likes focus. I can relate to that. I need to take myself away for quiet time too. He needs to focus when he's coding. So we know that about him now. What does he need from his Scrum Master? I need clear communication. I need constructive feedback. That's what helps me, says Jonas. What's the last piece of work that you really enjoyed? I loved working on the app design. Remember, they work in the customer loyalty space, so he loved working on the app design. He loves problem solving. What is a work-related skill? He wants to improve his React Native skills. He wants to build better experiences. Remember all of this about Jonas, because it's going to come handy for you. What's one thing you'd like to see in our work environment? I want the opportunity to build my skills. That's what Jonas is saying. He's saying that he wants to learn. Quite progressive. So we know this about Jonas. But do you think if we didn't give him an opportunity to explain what he wants out of his work environment day to day, that it would come out so easily? What do you think? Right? You need to give people the opportunity to come forward with stuff. And you need to make that environment safe so they can share that about themselves with you, with the rest of the team, and share what they want to share too. That's where real empathy in a team comes in. That conversation leads to understanding, leads to collaboration, so you can get to that consensus quicker. You can get to that point where you realize how much work needs to be done. And that is a real game changer, especially for your stakeholders, especially for managers, leaders who are asking you how much work needs to get done by the team. One way of building that consensus is the ladder of inference. Now, I like this, but I also didn't like this too much to start off with, and I'll share why with you in a moment. Notice something about the ladder of inference. It's put forward by Chris Argyris and Peter Senge in The Fifth Discipline. That's a book I recommend. But the only things that this ladder basically represents how we as humans make decisions, right? We take in data, we make some observations from that data, we select that data, we draw meanings from it, take assumptions, then from those assumptions we draw conclusions. They build our beliefs, they lead to acting. The thing is, that ladder exists within all of us, but the only two things that are visible to each one of us if we were collaborating are the top rung and the bottom rung. Everything else is happening internally. So this is a great tool for building trust within your teams because it allows you to ask, what else is actually going on? So let's take an example. Lena, remember Lena? Who remembers Lena from our example? Lena was a bit tentative about that user story, but we didn't know why. We didn't get to explain. If I was Lena's coach and I was talking to her about this, I'd be speaking to Lena and saying, oh, Lena, you seem a bit tentative. Let's explore that further. What is it to try to make her talk about that? And maybe Lena would say, do you know what, Nish? Part of the 3 sprints that we've run with our stakeholders, I've had really difficult conversations with the main stakeholder. From that, I took the meaning that they don't want to know about delays or implications to timelines and commitments. So I've drawn the conclusion that it's better to just give them a high estimate because it earns us some bandwidth. Do you see how that ladder of inference is working with Lena? And then I would match her and I would say, actually, Lena, I've been at the same meeting. The conclusion I draw is that the stakeholder is critical but could be open to working in different ways. So when we get to that conclusions rung, my one doesn't match with Lena, and that causes us to look at different ways in which we can approach that with the stakeholder. Make sense? Yeah. So it's a great way in which you can have conversations. You can really examine your decision-making capability. And also ask yourself within your teams, what data are you not considering? Where are those assumptions? What conclusions are you drawing? It helps you take a balanced view and make balanced decisions in a grounded way. If this team have a psychologically safe environment, in my view, this is how the conversation would change. They would feel confident, like Jonas does, but he wouldn't be sitting back, resting on his bean chair like in a gangster pose. Jonas would be saying, I feel confident about my estimate because possibly he's linked out to other stakeholders and built relationships in the business. Thomas would be saying, I'm comfortable, not to say I don't really get the user story. Can we explore it a bit further? And not fear any repercussion from the rest of the team. Look how Lena would have changed. Same with Aras. They feel more comfortable in discussing openly their reservations. So they're now giving voice to those silent thoughts. When you show deep empathy towards others, their defensive energy goes down. And that positive energy, some of that you felt when Anthony came up here and did the bow tie stuff with you. That's that energy that you want in your teams. That's when you want to get them more creative because it will give them that spark. But you'll get it in exchange for showing that empathy. The key takeaways, much of these key takeaways also are for me in the process of coming up with this presentation, but I would love for you to take these away. The conversation brings clarity, it brings trust. It will also allow us as Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, product managers, product owners, the abilities to start recognizing patterns and areas for team improvement. We will start using our intuition to understand when things don't feel quite right. When teams need to open up about what they're really feeling to give voice to those silent thoughts. Leadership will look at you as a team and go, I want to work that way. Why aren't we working that way? Because you've got a flow, you've got a rhythm, you're open with each other. And you can get a good read on the culture of an organization when a team is showing those behaviors. You also can get good at describing the complexity and the experimentation to your stakeholders in complex environments because you've taken the effort to understand their point of view as well. Lastly, I want to pay a little salute to Jimbo's glasses, because without Jimbo's glasses and the story and that lesson to myself, this presentation would not be here. I'd love for you to ask any questions that you have on this topic. Go for it. Go for it, Martin.
Yeah, so I really loved the Jimbo story. So got a question related to that. Okay. Because initially you had these different feelings, but you practiced restraint. So what was it in you that you didn't immediately go to Jimbo and say, like, hey, you did a terrible job, you need to do better?
Do you know what it is for me is working with teams and that practice of working with teams. Because you don't understand the full situation. You can't possibly know unless you've taken the time to speak to someone in that judgment-free space. So I'd say that would have to be it. That's what makes me pull back and say, actually, let me find out and let them speak rather than me go in there with prejudgment. I'm not an angel. I was thinking all of that stuff, but I tried to hold back on judging.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Thanks for the talk. You mentioned psychological safety, and the question will be very tricky. How do you define if there's enough psychological safety, too little, and how do you get to the point where you can evaluate the level of psychological safety, and who does that?
I love that. So I use a couple of things. So for me, a couple of things that I can share with you that I use. One is just listening and observing the team when they're in some of the Scrum events, when they're talking, and also listening to how they disagree. Do they get over disagreements quickly? So if we were to disagree about something, that disagreement happens, they found a way through, and they move on. It's done, it's passed. Their eye and their focus is on the outcomes, right? And they feel safe enough to speak to each other, to have that spirited chat, and then it's gone, right? They're moving forward. So their eye is on those outcomes that they've agreed to, their sprint goals that they've agreed to, and they feel safe to talk about that. The other thing that I love is I get them to timeline, in the retrospective, I get them to timeline the sprint. So the top is the actual events, and the bottom is how they felt during that sprint. And you'd be surprised, and you'd think people wouldn't volunteer it, but they do. I've had people say, in my team say, we felt disconnected from each other at this point in the sprint. I didn't feel supported here at this point in the sprint. I felt it wasn't safe to say this at this point in the sprint. I clammed up during a sprint review because I came across a difficult stakeholder at this point in the sprint. And there you get really good measure of where you need to help that team. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
No worries. Anyone else? That's it. Well, I want to turn your attention back. Can I move on? Can't seem to move on. Oh, never mind. I want to turn your attention back to that very first exercise that you did. There we go. And I want to say, remember that first exercise where you potentially met someone that you didn't know? Well, I hope that your dinner plans will change as a result. Thank you so much for spending the time listening to me, taking part and participating. I thank you. I thank everyone that's gotten up early in different parts of the world to join us online, and also our volunteers. Thank you very much.